Oh, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 102 of the Swingman podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Jules Gnager. Join us all the time by Louis Halpin and Lewis Howard. It's playoff time. It's the best time in the NBA. I don't care what happens. All-Star Weekend's fun, and you get all the regular stuff around the season. But the build-up and hype for playoff time, there is nothing like it in an NBA season. What we're going to do is we're going to break down the play-ins and then go through our playoff brackets. We normally do this each year. Obviously, now we're doing it on video, so it'll be a bit different. But yeah, I mean, we'll start with our playing predictions because that's probably the best place to start in round one. Do you want to go east or west? I'll give you the choice, Lewis.
We'll do east first. I think east is the more straightforward one.
Sure. If you catch me looking up, it's because I have my bracket prediction. I'm sure you two have got it below you. To the side.
Mine's below. So if I look down, it's me looking at my phone.
Yeah, so it'll be a little bit different to that. But did you want to go? Do you want to start east? Did you say?
Yeah, we'll go east. I think east is probably the one we're most going to have a consensus on.
Sure. So I mean, should we start with who Miami are going to play then as the premise of that, or should we go?
I thought we'll do play-ins first.
Are you want to do?
So I do the play-in teams are.
Sure.
And then go on with the rest of it.
Sure. Take it away, mate.
All right. Well, I think it's funny. We were talking about odds before, and it was the odds of teams in the play-in to make the playoffs after going through it. And the Nets were actually behind the Clippers and the Timberwolves from where you look, George. And it's because the level of the teams in the East are higher than in the West, like a couple of them. So I think the order might be different between our predictions with the play-ins in the West, but I think they'll be the same here, even though the teams are better. So that's why I think we should do this first. So the Nets play the Cavs first. I'm definitely going to go with the Nets on that. I think that they're just the better team, best player. Yeah, it's hard to go against it. And then this maybe will where it will differ a little bit after not the 9-10 game, but the loser playing the winner after that. So I think we'd also all pick the Hawks to win versus the Hornets. And then the one game that might swing it is the Cavs-Hawks game. But personally, I'm pretty confident that the Hawks are going to beat the Cavs. And I would be surprised if you two went different. I know, Louis, you do like quite a lot of the Cavs players, but I mean, we'll see who you pick.
I actually have the exact same as you. I think I agree. You can't go against the Nets in that Cavs matchup. I think it's quite funny because quite a few of the teams I think were kind of trying to avoid the Nets, the teams at the top anyway. And there was a bit of a sort of stretch a couple of weeks ago where teams didn't want the 1 seed because they think the Nets might end up in the 8th seed. But that wasn't going to work because they're playing. So it is quite funny that the Heat end up in the 1st seed and they end up playing quite a favourable opponent either way, I think, really. Well, actually, I don't have it as a very favourable opponent as it goes on. But yeah, KD, Kyrie. Ben's probably not going to play. I think I put that in the group chat yesterday. We had the discussion whether Ben Simmons is probably going to play, and I think we all lean towards no. Although there are sort of rumblings.
There's the report he's not going to play like 20 minutes or 15 minutes in games, which I can't.
If they made a really deep run, like almost all the way, like conference finals minimum, then maybe I think he'd play. But other than that,
it would. It's quite difficult because that would probably alter my predictions for them in later series because obviously he's going to be their 3rd best player. He adds a different dimension to them defensively, which I think is their real weakness. But they'll beat the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs, I think, have kind of a center point of offense now in Garland, and they don't really stray too far from that. I think it might be a bit of a stretch for him to beat out Jules, shall we say, the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie and KD. And Jared Allen, I believe, is also questionable. So there's all that. I think without Gordon Hayward, the Hawks beat the Hornets, better offensive team. And I agree. I think, again, it's a bit much to ask Darius Garland. I think there's a lot of pressure on him offensively to carry that team past the Hawks. And I think the Hawks are just better equipped to go for a playoff run, if that makes sense. It's like they kind of coasted in the regular season. So I've got them playing the Heat as well.
All right, Joel, what about you?
So yeah, I mean, I still to this will still get slightly confused when we go through on the brackets for it. But I mean, yeah, I think Brooklyn will end up beating. So Brooklyn will beat the Cavs and they'll play the Hawks or the Hornets. That's right, yeah.
No, Brooklyn will beat the Cavs and they'll be the 7th seed, and then the Cavs will play either who you think is going to win out of the Hawks or the Hornets.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the Hawks and the Hornets. I think the Hawks will beat the Hornets and go from there. And I think the Nets will be the Cavs. So that's how.
And then you think, what do you think the Hawks will be the Cavs then?
Yeah. I mean, the issue with if the Cavs are at full strength, the thing with it as well is always when you get these playing brackets, there's always a shock because it is just that single game. So there's always the potential for it to happen. But I mean, on paper, you would go with that. So that's nothing too exciting then between us three.
No.
But I think that's how you get it in that case. But Louis, do you want to take us off with the West as well?
Are we doing the playing in the West then as well? Okay.
Yeah, do the play.
Yeah, do the playing in the West.
Okay, so I feel like I've heard quite a few people actually say that I quite enjoy the playing tournament because I think it's quite entertaining. It'll rise on.
No, definitely, it's a good dimension to start the playoffs with.
I could understand if you're the 7th seed Timberwolves here and you've won 45, 46 games.
I don't like the fact that the 7th seed can end up like. If you're, I prefer it where the 8th's in trouble and the 7th isn't. I don't know. That's just the way I feel about it.
But it's also, I think, kind of helped. I mean, the East, the teams like you said in the 9th and 10th are actually good, whereas in this case,
there's a real
West,
gap.
they're just not like they're 4 teams.
Yeah.
Like 34, you shouldn't be able to get in the playoffs getting 34 wins. But this is just kind of a carving the side, really. But I think. Of course, I'm going to go with my beloved Minnesota Timberwolves to beat not the San Antonio Spurs, the LA Clippers. The Paul George aspect scares me slightly because he's the best player in that series and the most experienced as well. I just think Ant is coming back into it a little bit more. He had a bit of an injury towards the end of the season, and then you saw him explode for 49 points. 49 points against the Spurs the other night, so that helps a little bit. D'Lo's been kind of poor all season, but I just think the Timberwolves have a greater accumulation of talent than they previously had, and I think this is the time that Cat really needs to stamp his authority in a postseason setting. It's only going to be the second time that he's going to be able to do it. But I think it's kind of now or never for him, and I think he will be able to roast the Clippers offensively. And I just think we have a great coach as well. Not that the Clippers don't have a great coach, so. I just think the greater accumulation of talent will win out there. So I think the Pelicans will probably beat the Spurs, but it's kind of a toss-up. I think both teams are quite poor. CJ McCollum on the Pelicans is probably the best player in that series. Then you got Ingram as well. I just think, again, in the one-game type scenario, it will win out there. And that might be Pop's last game as a Spurs coach. We'll see.
Yeah, very potentially.
We'll see as that goes on. So that will end up with a Clippers Pelicans matchup. I've gone for the Clippers because I just think they're the better all-round team. I mean, they're not too far off the Timberwolves really in terms of record. They've not been a bad team whatsoever. And with Paul George added to that, I think that'll just edge them out slightly. And then it'll be sort of a bit of a summer or an off season of a bit of question for the Pelicans because they'll have to figure out what they do with Mr. Zion Williamson going forward. But that's what I've gone for.
All right. Well, I'm glad we did the West second because what I thought would happen did happen. And we're all going to end up picking the Timberwolves and the Clippers. Like we just are. It just depends on the order. I am actually going to go with the Clippers over the Timberwolves. I do think, when you talk about accumulation of talent, obviously Kawhi's not there, and if he was there, this would change. Yeah. But I do think the Timberwolves have the better talent when you stack it up. But looking at the results this season, and obviously you can't put too much on the regular season, but the Clippers have won 3 games to the Timberwolves 1. And every time Cat plays the Clippers, he always seems to struggle a little bit offensively, which is... There was one, I think the first game they played, he got 33 points, but even that wasn't super efficient. I mean, 33 points is 33 points. But apart from that, I think he's had a few rough games against them. And so, I don't know. I just fancy the Clippers in that matchup. And then I think the Pelicans will beat the Spurs. I think the Spurs are a well-drilled unit, but I just think the Pelicans will have too much for them. And then definitely the Timberwolves to beat the Pels. I think if you pick anyone other than the Timberwolves and the Clippers in this, you're just being stupid.
So you've got Clippers playing Memphis, and you've got Timberwolves.
Yeah,
sounds cool. So I mean, I'll go with I'm the same as Louis in that regard. I think that the Timberwolves will beat the Clippers. Primarily, I think this is because Cat's played one playoff series before in his career against Houston. I think that's it, and obviously, I think they would have lost that anyway. So this is sort of you could arguably say the biggest game that he's had so far in his NBA career in that regard. So I know I didn't really know about his struggles against the Clippers, but if he's not going to get up for that single game against the Clippers, granted PG's back, but no Kawhi, they're still hurt in that regard. I would expect the Timberwolves to beat the Clippers.
Yeah.
And then I'll have I don't really care who gets out of the Pelicans Spurs game. I think the Clippers will dispatch them anyway.
Yeah.
So I do think the Spurs will beat the Pelicans to add to that. I don't know. I can't remember what you just said then. Did you have it as
No, we both said Pelicans.
We all
I
agree
do,
that.
I do think the Spurs will beat the Pelicans. I just think they'll be more drilled and it'll just be a game of which it'll be good for them, but they won't have enough to get over the Clippers in terms
It's
of
a low quality game either way. I think we can all agree there shouldn't be anywhere near this sort of picture.
But this is also the sort of scenario upon which a Clippers or Timberwolves could slip up to a Spurs, because Spurs have got absolutely no pressure on them to go in there.
Nah, it's not happening. There's no way.
It's a one game scenario.
In a one game scenario.
But you could say anything can happen. But
I'm not going to say the Spurs are going to win the NBA Finals, but I'm saying that in a one game situation of a world with Pop there and everything that surrounds it, there's definitely potential.
Yeah, there's a chance, but it's not happening.
The one game scenario definitely makes it a bit more a possibility than
obviously.
It's not a series, but I mean, if you're going to put money on it, you're not going to put money on the Spurs for this. But no, I'll go Memphis to play the Timberwolves and the Suns to play the Clippers, and go from there. So okay, so we have our pictures through. So we've got the Hawks, we've got the Nets, and we've got the Clippers and the Timberwolves making it into the actual playoffs.
Yeah, Lewis says the Timberwolves, Clippers in different order is the only thing I will say as we go forward.
All right, so we'll stay on the west side. So we'll go Phoenix first. So Lewis, you take away your pick here.
Right. Let me just quickly get it up.
So we've done in the background before this, just to prep for the podcast. We've done all of our NBA playoff brackets. It is available. It is available on the NBA site on their pick'ems that they do on their fantasy sort of side. The way that they have it set up, and this is what will probably cause us to stumble a bit, is that you can see who you've picked for round one, but it just says the 4 teams. It doesn't say you can't pick the one team that you think are going to play the Suns, the Grizzlies, Boston, and Miami. So you have to remember it in that order. So, Lewis, I've got the
Suns and the Timberwolves, and I've got Memphis and the Clippers.
Yeah. Okay. So who do you think's? So what do you think's going through round one?
Right.
Phoenix. And the matches.
Do you want me to just go through all of the first rounds, or just do one? I think for time's sake, we should probably go through all of them.
Yeah. Okay. So go through everything that you've got, and then you'll probably guess off of our facial reactions if we've got.
All right. So first, Phoenix. I'll be honest, I didn't care who came out of the play-in in this side. I think Phoenix would have dealt with either of them pretty handily. So I've gone Phoenix in 5 over the Timberwolves. They're just a far better team. Dallas and Utah is interesting because Luke has just got injured. I would have picked Dallas in 6, but because of the injury and just because he might miss a game or two, I changed it to Dallas in 7, just to give Utah a little bit of an extra game because Luka gets injured. Because if Luka gets injured, then Dallas, whatever game they play without him, they're probably losing. But I mean, I'm still going to pick them to go through. Golden State and Denver's an interesting one because the Golden State just don't have an answer for Jokic whatsoever. I think there was one game this season where he had a bit of a rough one against them, but they're just not going to be able to do anything. But they should still have enough, especially with people coming back. I know there's somewhat of a question mark around Steph and his fitness, but I think he should be all right. Draymond's back now. Clay's had a couple good games and he's got back up to speed. So I've picked the Warriors, but I did pick them in 7 because I do think they're going to have some problems with Jokic, and we know what Denver are like in those home playoff games. It's definitely one of the hardest places to go to. Excuse me. So I'll go Golden State in 7. Then finally, this one would have been interesting, I think, if I'd have picked the play in the other way around, because I had a look and actually I think Memphis struggle against the Timberwolves a little bit, whereas the Clippers I think is a much better matchup for them and has been throughout the season. So I've actually gone Memphis in 5 against the Clippers. I think they'll deal with them pretty easily.
Interesting. Okay. So I mean, from my point of view, it's going to be pretty quick, really, in going off this. I also had no real regard of who the Suns will play. I went Phoenix in 5. I think they'll get a game on the road, but they'll get a game at home, whoever they play. But I think Phoenix in 5. Also, with Luka's current potential thigh strain and calf strain, and limiting his minutes and stuff like that, I think it'll be quite a close series. I have Dallas in 7 for that. Also in the same spin of your Golden State and Denver, I don't. Did you say Golden State in 7? I had Golden State.
I did say in 7. Yeah.
The issue with the Denver one is Denver have got a really good record over Golden State in terms of previous history and everything for it, and obviously Denver's well-known home court advantage with the altitude. But I just think that the Denver Nuggets team, if they had a full strength roster, I would definitely have the Nuggets over them, but they don't. So it's going to be Golden State for me in 7 on that one. And then for me, having Memphis and the Timberwolves, I didn't really know about the struggles that the Timberwolves had against Memphis.
It's not like massively struggled. I think Jar struggles a little bit against them.
I think it's more of the, regardless of it, I just think that the Timberwolves and K will be sort of the biggest games that they've got. I think they will take a couple at home, so I have Memphis at 6. So
I would have picked Memphis if they came up against Timberwolves anyway, but...
Yeah, that's me. Louis, have you got anything that's going to break the mold here?
Not particularly, I must say.
Right.
I had a full-on sweep for whoever Phoenix plays in the first round, which
that's fair.
Yeah, maybe it's slightly harsh because even when Kawhi went down last season in the Western Conference Finals, the Clippers did get a couple games, but in any case, I just think Phoenix are a better team this year than they were last year. I think the backup center really helps them as well. Not that it really matters in this case very much, but yeah, I've got them sweeping that. I've got, again, Dallas in 7, mainly due to the Luka injury concerns. It's quite mad that we still all pick Dallas, even with that sort of concern looming overhead. He could miss sort of early estimates, maybe like 2 weeks or something like that. No one really knows. I'll say that, but I think it shows that we don't really have a lot of confidence in the Jazz, and that relationship between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert doesn't seem to be really bearing fruit much anymore. I actually have Golden State in 6 rather than 7, which is slightly different from you two, because I just think it would be so hard for Jokic to carry that team to more than those wins. For me anyway, that team's really not very good, which is why for me he'd probably be the MVP. But that's kind of regardless. And I've got Memphis in 5 against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which I'm quite surprised. That is true about the Timberwolves record against Memphis, which maybe goes against my point slightly. I just think Memphis was just such a, we've used the unit the term quite a lot, but such a well-drilled unit, even without Ja Morant. I may have been tempted to give another game or two to the Timberwolves if Ja wasn't back before the season ended. He came back a couple games towards the end of the season, which is nice. And I think he's just so good in the fourth quarter. That team is just so good defensively as well with Jaren Jackson Jr. That'll be a really tough time for Karl Anthony Towns. I will like to see Pat Bev trying to rough up Ja Morant a little bit, because that's what would happen if these two were to play each other, of course. But I do have them winning in 5. I think they're a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, the regular season's the regular season at the end of the day. So
yeah, it's true.
I mean, indeed, yeah. Louis, take us off. You go. We'll snake order it. So you go for your first rounds in the East as well.
Okay, we're doing the East now. Okay. So again, 1-8. So that would be for me, Miami against the Atlanta Hawks. I actually have Miami in 6. I think the Hawks will give them a tough time. I'm still not quite convinced of Miami offensively, which may be a bit of bias from watching them last year and then being just absolutely putrid. They've been better this year. With Kyle Lowry, of course, and I think Tyler Hero stepped it up a bit. But I think you can target Tyler Hero, and they're going to be really reliant on him in late game scenarios for that team anyway, I think, offensively. So I think you can get a couple wins off of that basis, but I think, Miami do have a really good team overall. I don't think they have one standout player anymore. I don't think Jimmy Butler's really been that guy this season. Maybe that's been a bit harsh, but I think overall their sort of talent base and just being better defensively will get them through that one. So I'll just do this in order. So I got the 4-5 matchup of Philly Toronto here, and I've gone for Philly in 6. They do have quite a poor record against Toronto this season. I think they're 1-3 if I'm correct. But in any case, I think they play a lot of sort of wingy type players, play quite small usually. So that lends in Joel Embiid's favour. I think he should feast quite significantly in this series, but I just do think they will also have trouble trying to contain Toronto on the fast break, actually, which is where their strengths have been sort of historically. And, I always come back to that statement Kevin Durant made after playing the Sixers with James Harden and Joel Embiid. If you run them, you've got a chance against them. So I think they can steal a couple off the basis of that. And I'm still not sure about James Harden, how he's fitting into that team, his health, and his playoff resume isn't exactly gleaming. But I've got them going through obviously, but in 6. Milwaukee, Chicago, right? I've got them taking the sweep there.
I can see a sweep.
Chicago have been so poor since the All-Star break. I think they have the 7th worst record in the league. They're really, really bad against the best teams in the league, which does not lend itself well when you're literally playing the best teams in the league in a 7-game series. So maybe that's a bit harsh. I think I probably went a bit over the top, but I had to make a bold pick there, so I went for the sweep. And then the Nets and the Celtics is a difficult one. I think if Robert Williams was a full-on sort of fit bill of health here, I'd have gone for Boston in less games. I'm going for Boston anyway. I'll say that now. Kevin Durant is obviously, and Kyrie Irving are obviously the best players in this series, which doesn't really fit my philosophy usually when thinking about these.
Yeah.
I just think Boston are so good defensively. I think the Nets just ship points like there's no tomorrow. And, I could be talked into either way this series going where Kevin Durant just averages like 40 points or something still, even though Boston are good defensively. I think Tatum will take a step up in this playoffs, like he's taken a step after second half of the season. I just think they had the momentum, and I think they're a better team on both ends of the floor, if I'm quite honest. So I've gone Boston in 7 on that one.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So I'll pick this up. I'll go at the top. So I've got Miami playing the Hawks. I think Miami in 5. I think the Hawks will get what? Trae Young will get you a game. It's as simple as that, really. It's the whole sort of Iverson v. the Lakers. Iverson will get you a game. I think I'm not comparing the two, but I just think in that sense of it, Miami on the road 1 game in Trae Young's house, he'll put up some serious numbers and they'll probably take the L on that one. But Miami, just as a collective unit, will probably want it more, and they'll be more well drilled, and they're just a better team. They're a better outfit. So yeah, Miami in 5 on that. So going into Sixers Raptors, it's been a bit of a Sixers on a massive slump recently, representing it a little bit as well on the City edition on there. I'm trying to see where my camera is, but for me. Now, the Sixers have had some bad times in Toronto in recent history as well.
Yeah.
It's not their exact favourite place, I'd say, and it'll probably bring up some memories for some of the roster that are still there. They're without Matisse Thybulle for when they play the away games because, and I don't know if either of you two know this, he got the first vaccine but wouldn't get the second, so I don't understand that. So he can't get into Canada anyway, and he's quite a big cog in terms of Sixers in the Sixers defensive sort of plays and roles. So that'll be a big loss on the road. Toronto on a bit of a come up as well recently, and just everything around it. The big sticking point is obviously James Harden. I don't think I know Embiid's dropped a donut in Toronto before, but I don't think that's really a question. No one's going to be questioning Embiid's performance. So that's long down the road now. People aren't querying that. It will be all eyes are on James Harden and Doc Rivers for that matter, because he definitely won't be without question during this series and during the whole playoffs. I think the big issue with James Harden, I think he's in the last 3 or 4 games, he's got 2 more made field goals than turnovers, which doesn't really spell great form going into a playoff run. I very much can see the Sixers messing this up, but I think that they'll just about scrape themselves over the line. I think it will be Philly in 7, and I don't think it'll be a very commanding performance from them. I think Embiid will end up carrying for it because we're still waiting to see James Harden really do it in the playoffs. And new team still not really settled in. I'd say doesn't really work in terms of what Doc Rivers is trying to sort of pursue on the court. So I think they'll just have too much talent for the Raptors, but it won't be pretty. So yeah, Philly in 7. Other side of it, Bucks Bulls. Again, I went with a sweep. I can't see the Bulls getting a game here. As we all know, the Bulls had it was a really nice come up story in terms of that. They were really great at the start of the year, DeMar DeRozan and everything like that. They've got nice pieces, but it's that big game record against the top teams is not great. It's not stellar. I don't care what they'll say going into it. It will be on their minds. They will absolutely know about it. And, the Bucks are like a team of that when they get on top, they can easily put sort of a 10-15-0 run on you. And I think that'll then be in their minds. That'll happen. And then it will just down tilt from there. So I don't think they've got anyone that can deal with Giannis. And if Giannis is on top form, he'll want to get this game. He'll want to get this series over and done with as quick as possible. So 4-0 sweep there. And then Boston Nets. Nets are a tricky one, especially when you think about the Kyrie Irving situation with Boston. There's always he'll come in there with some sort of some sage, and he'll be burning it in the garden. He'll do everything that he can do to try and get in the heads of Boston fans before it. I do think it's going to be really close. Again, I agree with the injury before from what the Celtics have got, but I think KD will take over if he needs to in these games. So I have it down as the Nets in 7, but I do think it'll be close. When I sit back and look at it, I'm like, I only got one sweep in the first round, and there tends to be more than that, I feel.
Yeah.
Prior years. So I think I've gone a bit conservative. I probably should have gone for the Suns to get a sweep, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, this is it's a little bit boring, I'll be honest.
No, right, okay.
I think I've almost got the exact same for you on every single one. But Miami are against the Hawks. I've got Miami in 6. I do think, as Louis said, I think Trae Young will cause them quite a few problems, but Miami have got too much for them. Philly, if you asked me predict one major upset in any of the first round, I would pick Toronto to beat Philly as that choice. But I haven't actually gone for that. I've gone for Philly in 7. I really think they're going to struggle, but I think Embiid's just going to have a monster series and they'll be fine, but just by the skin of their teeth.
Do we think Siakam's going to have a big series? Do we? Because we question.
I think he'll play well.
But when we think about it before, we always bring up Harden's playoffs. Siakam's not really stellar in the playoff categories, is he? Now?
He's won the championship.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I'm sort of, you know what I mean.
You don't hold Siakam to the same standard you hold James Harden because Siakam's not a superstar, which James Harden is. So I think that's why there's a massive difference there.
I think Freddie will have quite a big series. I can't see anyone really in the...
Fred VanVleet, when they're in Toronto, will be nuclear, I think, for them because there's no thigh ball, so there's literally no one that's going to be able to defend him, I don't think.
Yeah, carrying on. So I got Philly in 7 there. Milwaukee, Chicago. When you said the sweep thing, I realized I actually haven't put a single sweep down. So I've definitely got one of these wrong. But I decided to give Chicago a game. I'll be honest, it is a pity game. That is exactly what it is. I should have really put them to get swept. Sorry, but I'm going to say 5 games. I'll give them a game. And then Boston, Brooklyn. I would like to preface this by saying, if Robert Williams was fit at the start, I would pick the Celtics 100%. But he's not.
Okay.
And I think KD's going to go absolutely nuclear. Like absolutely nuclear. Minimum averaging 35 points, probably more. But even with that, I think he'll have to do that for them to get through. So I've gone Brooklyn in 7. I think the Robert Williams is going to be a huge miss for them. And I think the issue is there is a world where Tatum goes nuclear as well. Like I think one of the games they played this year, he had 54 points on the Nets, and he's more than capable of doing it. But I don't think he'll be able to do it. And I'm not saying he has to average 50 for the entire series, but he's going to have to average at least like 32 points, I think, throughout the series to get Boston over the line in this. And I just trust Kevin Durant with Kyrie Irving behind him to push him over the line.
So we've all got the same semi-final predictions, right, in terms of matchups?
No, Louis picked the Celtics.
I picked the
Oh,
Celtics instead of the Nets.
sorry, that slipped past me. You went for, okay, I didn't realize. I
Yeah.
thought you was going for the whole Celtics thing and then was going to cut back. I didn't even realize.
No,
that.
I think if Robert Williams was there, they'd win in like 6.
Yeah, I think they've
I've
got
got them in 7. But
Okay,
yeah,
interesting. So you've
But I've
got
Nets
Bucks
in 7.
Celtics. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, so we'll swing back now. We'll move on to the semi-finals. So we'll swing back over to the West. So we've all got Phoenix, Dallas, right?
Yep.
yeah.
So I have Phoenix in 6 on this. Again, prefacing that I feel that Luka, if he's all bit of health's all fine, obviously going to push through. I think that Luka, there's no way in which a team with Luka Doncic in the playoffs cannot manage to win both 2 home games. I can't see it. He might even steal one on the road against Phoenix, and then Phoenix will come back on the away legs. But I can't see the Suns sweeping Dallas. Maybe in 5, but I'm just feeling that sort of the energy playoff time with Dallas as well is always a little bit. It's always up there in their arenas for it. So I'll say Phoenix in 6 for this one. And then Golden State, Memphis for me. This is where this is the tough one. This is the sort of I think out of the whole of the semifinals, this is the hardest one to pick from me on my bracket. And with all of that said, I've not liked the Warriors since they've got their whole trio back. Something hasn't been right. I don't know what it is in necessary terms. I do think playoff time, completely different ball game. Everyone steps up for it. And then experience will come into the manner where you've got Clay, you've got Steph, you've got Draymond. They've got all of this big game experience for it. You've got Andrew Wiggins as well, who's there. Also, I shouldn't say it that bad. He's an NBA All-Star starter. So he's first team. He shouldn't be just there. He should be right there. But in the capacity of those 3, you will say he's just there. However, I do think that the Grizzlies this year have just got a little bit more about them. Ja Morant is absolutely popping in the league right now. And I think he's going to go through that. I think that first playoff series is going to be big because I think against Denver, it's going to take a lot out of Golden State. It's going to take a lot to beat them, just primarily in terms of the road games and everything. Whereas with Memphis, I don't think they're really going to have a hitch. I know I put them in 6, but I still think it'll be quite easy for them. I think coming into it, Ja Morant is going to have some massive games in that first one and carry the form through. So with all of that together, I've gone Memphis in 6. That's what I've said.
All right. Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll go next.
Yours?
Yeah, I'll go next. So Phoenix, Dallas. I've kind of got the same opinion of you with that one. Hence why I've also gone for Phoenix in 6. I think Luka gets you a couple of games. I think coming towards the end of the season, the Mavs have really been one of the form teams in the NBA. And they'd give anyone a hard game, but the Suns have just been unreal the whole year. So I don't think you can go against them there. Now, Golden State, Memphis is extremely tough. I agree. I think Memphis have obviously been the better team throughout the regular season. They've had less problems than Golden State when it comes to injuries, but even without Ja Morant, they've been rolling. I've been saying over the past few weeks, I think, in a couple of podcasts, when it comes to bringing people back from injury or trying to mesh them together, it's not something that happens overnight. Even if you are bringing a superstar player back, you just do have those growing pains of fitting them all together. You look at someone like Jordan Poole, it's hard when Clay's coming back and Steph's coming back to figure out how to integrate him in. So I think they will have struggles with that. So almost everything in my head is leaning towards picking Memphis. But I'm not going to do that because I don't know what it is. And it's throughout the entire season. We've had the conversations about, Phoenix, they're by far the best team. There's been a couple of times where I've been like, but the Warriors, I still, I still can't get them out of my head. And I just think Steph, Clay, and Draymond all being back together, even though everything I said before makes me believe that Memphis can do it, and to be honest, should do it, I'm still picking the Warriors in 7 just because I trust Steph, Clay, and Draymond to get it done. And and Jordan Poole will also be contributing massively. I just see him doing it. I don't know. I can't justify it, but it's just I'm going with my gut over my head here.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I think head speaking, I think the bookies will probably favour the Warriors in this matchup.
Yeah, I do as well.
Anyway,
and I think it's the exact same reason which I just said, and it's just the fact that it's Steph, it's Clay, it's Draymond, it's the Warriors. People don't want to pick the new up and coming team that are unproven in the postseason And I have also fallen for that and gone for the Warriors as well. But I mean, if Memphis do it, I won't be surprised.
It will absolutely get built as sort of a Steffi Jar series, and it could be potentially. I'm not absolutely going off of disrespecting Steph Curry in any way, shape, or form, but there's that sort of the new upcoming point guard that's going to go from there, and the old, and not the old timer, but sort of the vintage NBA class of Steph Curry. And I just think that I think you can go either way on it, and I'm just going to lean on the side of Memphis as well, Triple J as well, so that you can go with it either or. Louis, how have you got it falling? Actually, go clear up Phoenix and Dallas first.
Yeah. I mean, I've got Phoenix going through obviously the same as you. I've got them. I've only got Dallas getting one game in comparison to you two. Which I do get your point. Luka Doncic can get you 2 games. I just think it's very rare for a system in which Dallas play where Luka handles so much of the responsibility. It's quite difficult for that to go really far in the playoffs, especially when you're against a genuine, really good team like the Phoenix Suns. I think that for me as well, like the toll it will take if Dallas go for 7 games against the Utah Jazz, in my predictions anyway, and then going against a team like the Phoenix Suns who will be zoning in on him. And Chris Paul's obviously a bit of a dog defensively. They've got other guys they can throw in. Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder will be out there. Even Devin Booker can hold his own defensively these days. I think they'll just zone on him too much, and I think it'll just be too much for Luka. And I don't think his surrounding cast is as good if he's not playing at the very, very top level. 100%. He makes it so much better. So that's why I've gone for 5 there, but I can see 2 as well. I could be talked into that. But I am going to go with George on the other semi-final series. I've got Memphis winning it in 3. In 3, sorry. in 7. It'll be a close one, and I think the sort of mental issue in which you talked about of the Grizzlies being the ones to prove something may work against them at some stage. You can have that at certain times where Steph, Clay, and Draymond have been in this situation many a time, and they've done it before, and so the onus really is on the Grizzlies to prove they can hang with them. I just think I do think Jar will explode in this series as well. I think I had him exploding. He's going to explode in any series he plays probably, but he did dump out the Warriors last year in the play-in, if you remember correctly. That was a worse Warriors team, granted, but they'd garnered a bit of momentum. And maybe I am a little bit guilty of leaning into second half of the season momentum a little bit. I know not every team is playing their best players and all of that, but the Golden State Warriors really have been subpar since the All-Star break. They've got a worse record than the Knicks, the Pelicans, the Hawks, the Hornets. So there's obviously something they haven't figured out there. And if you haven't figured it out by the time the season's end, it gives me difficulty believing you'll figure it out in the playoffs. So I've just gone for the team that I know can consistently play well together and figured out a system that gets out the best in a lot of people. And they're a deeper team. They're both quite deep teams when you look at it, but I do think the Grizzlies can call upon more people and elevate their games a little bit more than the Warriors can, if that makes sense. Maybe the Warriors have better talent centralized, but I think I just have a feeling on this one that the Grizzlies will do it. And
so you went Grizzlies in 7, so I had Grizzlies in 6, and Howard, you had Warriors in 7.
Warriors in 7, yeah.
Cool. All right, so I'll move over to the East. So I'll go with in our brackets. It should really be Miami Sixers, but I'll talk about it at the end. For me, I think that I've got Bucks Nets in this series. I think this will be, in terms of quality and watchability, this will be the sort of pick of the entire playoffs. These games, the series last time out was unbelievably great to watch in terms of that Kevin Durant spin free, just had his toe on the line, moved to a 2. Everything around those series is always great. I think the games will be unbelievable. But again, I do think the Bucks will just have too much. I think Giannis is just unstoppable in terms of this. Kevin Durant's Kevin Durant. And it feels wrong to say that Kevin Durant will get you, but KD will get you a couple of games. So I went Bucks in 6 on this. I just think that the Nets will step up and give them a couple of games, but Bucks in 6 there for me, for them to progress into the conference finals. And then the other one is the Heat v the Sixers, an old time classic in terms of rivalries, and there's so much driven and attached to it. I don't think it's really going to go well for the Sixers. I think it's going to go terribly, and it will be a repeat of what happens every year with the Sixers in the playoffs. I think they'll come off of only just about beating the Raptors in a 7-game series, which I think everyone can agree is what we think will happen. But there will be an expectation of, it's the Sixers v the Raptors. The Sixers should be going through in 5 or 6, but they'll struggle and they'll just about make it through in 7.
Yeah.
And then they move into a Heat series where the Miami Heat are going to be right on it. They're just going to, for me, the Heat are going to breeze through round 1. They're going to be dovetails up, their coattails up. They're going to be going for it. You've got the Jimmy Butler scenario. You've got Bam Adebayo against Embiid. And I think Miami, and just everything that they've got in terms of pressure and on-court fitness and everything around it, they'll be more hungry to win it. I can't see that hunger in the Sixers currently. I think as well, you'll have the scenarios of James Harden in these types of games of just Jimmy Butler sitting on him. And it's tough because I want the Sixers to do this, but I'm thinking with my head here. And I can't see in any way of which it's going to be a great time for the Sixers. And ultimately, I'll end up seeing this will be the fall of Doc Rivers and everything like it. I don't want it to happen. It's just what I think is going to happen. I don't think James Harden's necessarily going to have a good series. I think Embiid will put up his numbers, but I can't see anything around it. So I went Miami in 5 for this one.
5, Christ.
Yeah. I don't think they do.
All right, well, I'll do mine.
I'll be quite surprised if either of you two think the Sixers as well. So,
well, I definitely don't. I definitely don't think the Sixers, but I don't know. It's funny because I said if I was going to pick any major upset in the first, it would be Philly to lose to the Raptors. But I was deciding on this one. I do think Miami's going to win, but I was actually deciding between 6 or 7. I don't know what it is, but just something in both the series actually that I've got in the East semis just makes me think they're going to go really long. But I'll say Miami in 6 because I do just think they're the better all-round team. I think, as you say, James Harden's such an unknown entity at this point. Do you have confidence in him? Do you think he's going to really turn up? And I really like the way Miami reacted to the whole Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra situation, because that always goes one of two, and Haslam as well includes, obviously. I really think those things go one of two ways. It either completely demoralizes the whole team, factions start being created and everything falls apart, or, you come together, you figure it out, everything gets aired out at the time, and then you bounce back. And I feel like that's what the Heat have done at the moment. They finished the season quite strong after having a bit of a tough period and after that happened. And I think it will have galvanized the troops, so to speak. And so I'm going with the Heat there. And then the other series, I do just think the Bucks are better than the Nets, but just these two matching up against each other just screams 7-game series to me. It just does. So I'll go with the Bucks in 7. It wouldn't surprise me if the Bucks do it in less, but I know it's just something about this matchup makes me think, this is going down to the wire. This is going to the final game, and it's going to be KD versus Giannis the whole series, and then we'll see what the other players can do. Middleton and Drew versus Kyrie. Obviously that's a little bit lopsided one way. It's 2-1, but in the end, the Bucks should be able to pull through. So they're my 2 predictions.
Louis, I saw you smirking as I was talking about the Sixers. I'm sure you were enjoying the.
No, you know what?
It's the state of realization. I think I've gone into this many a year of being very optimistic, and the Sixers are going to pull it out of the bag. This year, I'm just not. So
your pessimism surprised me, but I was more smirking at the thought. I had a bit of a joke in my head about James Harden's hunger, which I thought was probably a bit nasty to tell. And then I thought,
have some class, Louis. He's not even at the game.
And then I thought, James Harden going to Miami a couple times.
Some extracurricular activities.
I started thinking, should I figure this into my prediction a little bit? But that's just James Harden literally every single night. So I wouldn't over-index that too much. But where did you two start? Did you start with the Heat or Six? Okay, you started with Heat Six.
Heat Sixers,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm a lot less pessimistic than George. I think it'll go to 7. I do think Miami will win.
Right.
I actually think that it will be quite a slow, grindy, really ugly type of series to watch.
100%. Yeah,
and I think that kind of plays into the Sixers' hands a little bit because, like I said, you want to make them run, you want to make Harden and Embiid run, but the Heat play with quite a slow pace. I think they're either second or third slowest team in the league on the pace stats because Kyle Lowry just kind of plays like that, and also because they've got quite a lot of old guys in that team. They're a weird mix of old and young guys, but the two primary guys who are handling the ball are old and they can't really get up and down the court as much, and they don't really play that many games. I just think, it's going to be a tough one for Embiid in comparison to the Raptors, who are a bit more small. You know, Adebayo is a genuine Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He probably would win Defensive Player of the Year comfortably if he'd have played more games. I still think Embiid probably has the edge over him because he's a little bit small for a center. But it'll be tough for him. And then who's the guys you're going to go to? You've got to go Tyrese Maxey, you've got to go James Harden. Like you said, Jimmy Butler will have the wind beneath him. He'll be going for James Harden. I mean, they'll all be going for James Harden. But if James can sort of find players to target, and I'm going to sort of zero in on Tyler Hero here. I'm not trying to be harsh because he's really important to them offensively, especially late in games. But defensively, he's the guy you kind of have to target going forward.
Yeah.
But the Sixers aren't a deep team at all. I mean, they're playing DeAndre Jordan, and he shouldn't even be in the NBA, let alone playing for a team that's like potentially competing for a title. Whereas the Heat, I do think are quite deep. You know, Oladipo's going off for games a couple nights ago, so I think it will be tough. It will be ugly, but I think the Heat will get there, and I think that's kind of what they want to do, really.
I can see you two both thinking it's going to be a long series. I've just seen it all before with the Sixers.
Yeah, no, you have.
Like we didn't even mention Tobias Harris, who's on that max contract. Like he should be a factor, and it just isn't in anyone's mind in terms of you thinking he's going to have a real impact depth. He'll probably get 15 points in this series, and it should be more than that on the money he's earning, but it just won't be. There's just every year it seems to be, and like with Harden at the minute, he's not even beating the first man. He's not doing what he used to do before. So it's just, I don't know. Maybe it could go a bit longer, but just realistically, how I see it, I think it'll be done in 5.
No, that's fair enough.
And then it'll be Doc Rivers out, Dan Tony in, and it'll be Harden ball next year. So
it will be a Doc Rivers out. The other matchup is obviously different to what you two had because you had the Nets facing the Bucks. I've got the Celtics facing the Bucks. Yeah, I still think it'll be a long series. Obviously, I do. If I picked the Celtics to beat the Nets, I've got it in 7 as well. I do have the Bucks edging it. I do think the Celtics have pieces that can kind of make life difficult for Giannis. Obviously, you're not going to stop him at this stage in the playoffs. He's kind of figured it out, and the free throws don't seem to bother him anymore. He's just like on another level, basically, which is why I think he'll carry him through. But again, Chris Middleton is also a bit of a bogey player for the Celtics as well. I'm just expecting Jason Tatum to have a big playoffs and make that extra step up, and I think they are a really good defensive team even without Robert Williams, so that'll give them enough to do it. And the Boston home atmosphere, big sort of sticking pointers for them as well, so that's why I've got them as getting as many. Maybe that's a bit favourable looking at it now, but that's what I've gone for.
If I had Boston going through, I would be half tempted to pick them against the Bucks, purely because I think one thing Boston do really well on defense is I think they do a good job of setting up game plans against other teams' star players.
Yeah.
And so I think they'll come prepared with a game plan to try and limit Giannis as much as possible. But I think the issue with that is, as you say, Chris Middleton is a bit of a bogey player for them. So I think if it does end up being Boston versus Milwaukee, which I don't have personally, I think Middleton will have a huge series.
Yeah. Agreed. Maybe Drew as well.
So we've all got Miami Bucks as the East.
Yeah.
And then me and you, Louis, have got Memphis Suns, and Howard, you've got Warriors
I've
Suns.
got Warriors Suns,
as your
yeah.
finals. Okay, so we'll move on to conference finals. So where do you think it's going to go, Lewis, of Warriors Suns?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first because then we can compare your two. Right. So I think when it comes to the matchups, I think Phoenix versus Golden State is a more interesting one than Phoenix versus Memphis personally. Because obviously you look at the two best players on either team and it's the backcourt for both of them. And if you were to look at who you would give the superstar edge to, you would give it to the Warriors, even though obviously you look at which one in both teams is an MVP candidate this year is Devin Booker. Which team is better? It's the Suns of this season. But maybe it's the same as what I said before. And with the bookies, you're going off past performances and the level that they can reach, and you obviously pick Steph there. And when Clay can go off at any moment. But even though I picked the Warriors over Memphis because of those reasons, I do think Phoenix are just that level above Memphis. And even with everything I've said about the Warriors, they'll just be too much for them. I think Phoenix really are the team this year, and they're just playing at such an elite level. DeAndre Ayton should have a big series against the Warriors, although that may be something the Warriors look to exploit when they're on offense and the Suns are on defense. But the Suns defensively are just such a good team anyway that I think they'll be able to figure it out. And so I've gone with the Suns, but I have gone with it in 7 games. I do think it'll be a bit back and forth. I think Steph will have some huge games, and Clay will probably have a couple big games as well, get some big points. But I think the Suns will have too much for him, so I've gone with the Suns in 7.
Suns in 7. Okay, interesting. Louis, how you seeing Phoenix v Memphis?
A little less close than what Lewis sees his Western Conference Finals matchups. I've gone for the gentleman's sweep in the Western Conference Finals there. I think this is where maybe the inexperience gets to Memphis a little bit. You could say the Suns haven't done it officially. They haven't won a championship, obviously, but they got to the NBA Finals last year. That was their first crack at it. I've alluded to it in the last couple of podcasts. I just think the Suns should be by far and away the favourites to make the Western Conference Finals. I don't think there's really anyone close in the Western Conference to them, which is why I think I've got teams winning a combined 3 games against them in 3 series. They're just so good and really tough defensively. I think that would be a tough series for Ja Morant if it gets to it in the paint. Obviously, Chris Paul picking him up. All the guys that I've said that they can throw at Luka, they can throw at Ja Morant. And there's other players on that Memphis team that can have a big night, which will give them a game. Someone like a Desmond Bain could pop up, Jaren Jackson. And they do have that inside presence with Steven Adams as well. So that'll be an interesting battle between him and Ayton. But I just think the Suns are by far and away the best team in the West. So
yeah
4-1.
Well, this will be short and sweet, as I also had gentleman's sweep written all over it. I think this series is gentleman's sweep written all. I did, for a point, I had 2, but I just don't think that the Suns will sort of allow it at this stage in the conference finals. I think they'll be rolling. Ja Morant will get them a game at home. He'll probably go off for like a 40 or 45, maybe hitting a 50 bomb. But I can't see anything but sort of maybe even the sweep, but I can't see anything but a Phoenix type of numbers anyway. So,
I mean, I'm 100% living off the Warriors name when I say Phoenix in 7. I should probably go lower than that, but it's what I've put. So
yeah. I mean, the thing is though, when you think of the Warriors, and this is the same thing as before, I'm just thinking that they won't click against Memphis, and it'll be a bit stagnant and everything like that. Whereas I feel that the momentum's with the Grizzlies, but I mean, there's nothing to suggest that there's nothing to suggest that Clay just sort of pulls it out and he comes back.
No.
You're looking at splash bros that you've had before, but no. Anyway, yeah. So that's me done for the Western Conference. I had Phoenix in 5. I'll carry it over. I'll go on to the East. So I have Miami Bucks in my finals. And again, I think it's sort of almost a similar story on the East side as it is to the West. I think the Bucks are so much clearer than anybody else in this conference now. Giannis can literally do anything. I don't think anybody's realistically going to stop him in the Heat. I think that the Heat, and they'll make it grindy in every game. I don't think they'll necessarily blow this Heat team out by 20 points in a night. I think the games, all of them will be close. But I just think that the Bucks have got too much class in terms of just services they can use, whether it be the wing on either or of them and Drew Holiday. I just think that they'll have too much. I've gone Bucks in 5 for this as well. So I've got both conference finals being gentlemen's sweeps.
Fair enough, Louis.
So yeah, this is a matchup we've obviously seen the previous 2 playoffs. Obviously in the bubble, Miami got the better of Milwaukee. They really managed to so-called build that wall, which historically had caused Giannis a few problems if you stop him from getting to the rim. Bam Adebayo was basically the perfect player to do so. I think that first game in the last year's playoffs where the Bucks edged it out, I think that just sort of clicked something in Giannis's head then. Because I think
100%.
Could have gone either way from that point on. But the fact that they pulled out that win, I think he just carried himself with another level of confidence in the playoffs that this whole game plan of they can stop me from getting to the rim is just not going to work. I'm just too physically dominant. And I didn't think he came up against anyone in the East which really could do what the job that Miami had done on him previously. This is probably the toughest matchup for him personally, individually. It's just not really a factor for me, though. I just think he's figured it out at this stage. So I too have gone. I've given Miami 2 games because again I think they can make it a bit grindy. Someone random can get hot on any night. I think that is being a bit generous to them. Actually, I think that's one of my more generous picks. But I do think they'll edge this one out again.
Yeah. I kind of have the same sentiment as both of you. I do think the Heat have a lot of bodies they can chuck at Giannis. They've got Bam's probably about as good as a defender for Giannis you can find in the NBA. And then Jimmy Butler can also help. Even PJ Tucker, they'll be able to just chuck him at him for a while. Whether he can do a ton against Giannis, I don't know. But it's just another body to put towards him. I think the Bucks will have too much for them in this series. I also gave them a couple of games. Once again, that might be being a bit nice towards them, but I do think this Heat team will be able to make it tough and grindy, as you say. I think the supporting cast for the Bucks will have to have, well, maybe not have to have, but will have a big series. I think Middleton will have another good series. I think Drew Holiday as well will have a good series. And so I've gone 6. I've gone in 6 for the Bucks.
Yeah,
6.
I think I was going to say I wouldn't be as bullish on the Bucks unless Brook Lopez hadn't come back. Sorry, I think he's just so important to this team defensively. He's just a bit. I think they call him a cheat code. I think Giannis might call him a cheat code defensively the other night. He's just so important on that end going forward. And I think as well the Bucks are just such a better offensive team than the Heat. I mean, the Heat about middle of the pack in offensive rating. I don't really like the way they play, but that's just more of a entertainment standpoint. But the Bucks are like consistently one of the best offensive teams every year, and obviously that stems from Giannis.
Right then, so we've all got. Howard, you did go Suns, didn't you? Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
I'm not, yeah. So we've got a repeat. We've all got Suns Bucks. Not necessarily the jaw-dropping prediction stats.
Yeah,
I
don't really like predicting repeats either because they rarely ever happen. But
but this is the whole thing with brackets is that I mean I can guarantee you for all of us, no matter what we've done, we've all got it wrong somewhere. It doesn't matter. We've got Bucks Suns, and I mean I've said it throughout, and I'll say it again. There's no one that's competing with. I don't care that the Suns are like the teams that come out from the West and all of this. They're absolutely nothing on the Bucks in terms of what they have. The Suns are unbelievable in their own right, but they've got I don't care about DeAndre Ayton. They don't have a Giannis. They don't have anyone that they can necessarily throw to contain a Giannis. And I've got the Bucks in 5 because of it. I almost put the sweep. But I just think that they'll get one in terms of. I don't think it'll be a blowout again, but there's so much quality on the Suns team. Chris Paul, I really would like to see him finally get it done, but I can't see it happening with just the way that Giannis is playing in this league right now. You're seeing him hit step back jumpers almost at this point. Like there's literally nothing the man can't do. So it is Bucks in 5.
All right, Louis.
I've gone a literal exact repeat of last season. I've gone for a 4-2 Bucks win in the finals. I agree with George. I think Ayton couldn't hold a candle to Giannis last season. Like, I'm not trying to be harsh. This is like
no.
He's going up against
it's not harsh. It's like if you talk about peak like LeBron, it's just their play. You just can't stop them in this right.
No,
Giannis
exactly.
is a physical specimen. Like no.
Yeah, and I don't really see any indication that he's developed too much defensively from last season to indicate that he'd give him any more trouble than he did last season. Paul and Booker were actually quite good last playoff series. You'd probably like to see a few more points from each if you're really thinking that the Suns can pull this one out. And I do think they are a better team this year, and it's so harsh that Chris Paul will come to the end of his career and maybe lose 2 finals straight in a row after not ever making it before. But usually when it comes to these types of scenarios, which I try and follow for most of these series, there's obviously going to be a few odd occurrences, but usually the best player does win out. And I think Giannis is probably the best player in the NBA. And they've tried to stop him before with these tactics of building the wall physically. But and the Suns probably do have the tools to try and do that, but he's figured it out now. He just has done. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. But
it's no longer that question of like, if Giannis gets a jumper, he's going to be. He's got.
Yeah, he doesn't need it.
No, it's not even that. One that he potentially doesn't need it. Two, he has it if he actually sometimes needs it. So it is that. So I've gone in 5. Louis, you've gone in 6. Lewis, have you gone for a Suns sweep, or have you?
I really had to think about this one.
Oh.
I have gone.
If you go for this and then go, Bucks in 6, I'm going to be like.
I have gone for the Suns in 7. Is what I decided. Might be my heart a little bit with Chris Paul and Devin Booker. I'd really like to see them get a championship. I'd really like to see Devin Booker win Finals MVP as well. I mean, Chris Paul too, but over the years, Devin Booker's had so much crap thrown at him. Like if he can come out, win a chip, win a Finals MVP in Phoenix, it would really shut up a lot of people that have said a lot about him over the years. I think the last Finals, I think the Suns were very naive the way they went about it. I think they relied too much on Ayton to try and stop Giannis, which he just can't do by himself. Like, no one can do it by themselves. Giannis is a bare minimum top 2 player in the league. Some people would still pick KD. It's whatever. I'm not going to argue that now. It's for another day. But you just can't stop him with one player. I think they'll come with a different game plan this time. I think when I look at the Bucks, I think it will take, because Giannis, even with an improved way of stopping him or reducing his output, because you can't stop him, he'll still get his. It will be on Middleton and Drew Holiday to step up and deliver alongside them. And I've just decided, you know what, I'm going to go with them to maybe not have the greatest series in the world. Maybe just them be quite average. Whether they will or not, I don't know. This is just what I've decided in my head. And I think Devin Booker will have a huge series. Chris Paul play well. They'll come with a new game plan. They've been the best team in the NBA all year. Throughout the year, I've gone maybe the Warriors, and then gone back and forth with some other teams. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna go with the best team for the entire year, and I'm gonna go with the Suns. And I'll say 7 because I don't think anyone will take a game in the other person's stadium for this. I'll make that prediction. I think everyone will win their home games, and the Suns will win it out.
Interesting. Yeah, Milwaukee have a good home court advantage. It's an interesting point as well because I think Drew had good one-off games in last year's playoffs. I think I can remember the Hawks particularly, where he pulled one out when Giannis wasn't there. Yeah. But consistently, he didn't really have a good series. And I think, how many times do you think Devin Booker has replayed or had it replayed to him, the video of Drew getting the steal, them going up the court and getting that alley oop. He must be mentally hardened from that experience.
The mental side of it, and I talked before about the Heat maybe getting a bit of a rejuvenation after what happened with Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler. I think what happened in last year's finals will have the Suns super motivated coming in, especially if they get the Bucks again to try and get it done, which is just another mental edge.
Yeah, I'd love to see Chris Paul getting it, but I just can't see a way in which Giannis it doesn't dominate in
I still, don't get me wrong, I still think Giannis, even in a loss, he'll be averaging like a bare minimum of like 28, 10, and 4 or 5. And that's if he has a bad, quote unquote, bad series for his standards. But I just think, why not have the Suns doing it? Why not Devin Booker to go off, Chris Paul to be solid, DeAndre Ayton to be solid, and them to learn from what happened in the last finals and make the adjustments necessary.
Totally. Well, I mean that's us then. So me and Louis got the Bucks. Lewis has got the Suns. We've got it pretty much going. Well, apart from me, I said it in 5. Lou, you had 6. Howard, you had 7. It's just we'll wait and see who gets it wrong more. I think this is a question of who gets it wrong more. Is essentially the question that will go from it. What was nice to see is I was just looking now at seeing if the schedule has been put up in terms of the UK viewing times for the playoffs. And the Dallas Jazz one is on Saturday at 6 p.m. So we can actually watch that game and not have sort of your eyes sort of peeled open for it. But that the playoffs last few years as well, they've tend to try and get some, especially on the Sundays. They've tried to get a lot of games that European people and UK people can actually get involved in and watch. They're still obviously the sort of 1 a.m. start times, which are tough, but it's good to see. It's good to see.
Yeah.
But,
more European superstars, isn't there? Really, they've got to appeal to.
That's definitely it. I mean, we didn't really talk about it in terms of. I think you touched on it. If you did have the Suns winning it in 7, would you have Booker as your finals MVP, or would you have Chris Paul? Booker. You don't think they give Chris Paul for the sort of the sentimental approach? But if
the Suns are gonna beat the Bucks, Devin Booker's gonna have to be their best player.
I mean, it's without question. There's no one else on the Bucks.
I was going to say there's not really much point.
I'm not Chris Middleton's biggest fan, but there's no way he's going to be winning it over Giannis. He's not going to drag. Chris Middleton's not dragging the Bucks to a.
He did play well in the last finals, though.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what that's where
it's not playing. It's not the all-time finals.
Giannis is going to be steaming down the court, and DeAndre Ayton's going to be worried about him, and he can just kick it out to Chris. But I mean, that's probably underselling it a bit, but. That's where we are in it. That's our. I didn't even. Oh, whoops. There we go. I didn't change it to the NBA playoff finals. Oh no, I didn't change it. But yeah, that's where we are for it. There was a tiebreaker thing that I did see on the NBA playoffs on the Pick'em site. What will the point margin be in Game 1 of the NBA finals? I am curious to see what you two would say for that. Because never know. We could have got this so right that it comes down to a tiebreaker. So I had an 11-point margin, as I think that would be the biggest one, but
11 at the Suns first game.
Yeah,
I think Milwaukee win by 11. Damn.
No, it's just what the point margin of Game 1 of the NBA Finals will be. I'm not going to stick my neck out on the line that much and say it's going to be a Bucks win there. It could be
if you're doing 11, one team's winning.
But yeah, I know. But I went for 11. What did you two have?
I put 7.
If you can remember,
I'll be honest. I just threw a number out there. I just judged.
Yes, I went for 8.
Wasn't thinking that in depth with it, but
no.
Okay, yeah. I mean, well, that was our playoff picks. It was an hour and 10 minutes long, so thank you for sticking with us on that one. And we'll wrap that one up there. Thank you very much for watching. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, please. It really does help us out. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever it is, please also sub and leave a review because it does help us out again more than you could imagine. And yeah, that's it. Check us out on our socials. We're at Swingman Pod, as you can see on the screen. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever you see, we're on there at Swingman Pod. And yeah, that's it. Check out our website, www.swingmanpod.com. And yeah, we will catch you in the next podcast where the playoffs would have started by then. So yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, and peace.